strike.
You guys getting spooked now? I think this is by far one of my favorite looks I've ever created and definitely the most advanced. So we've got a lot to cover, so let's not waste any time. So here is the cheapest and most accessible way to make prosthetics. Here I have a professional face cast of myself, but any basic human shaped thing could work, like one of those foam heads that you can buy at any craft store. Just make sure to coat it with a light layer of something like coconut oil or Vaseline so the prosthetics peel off easily. Then I'm using a mixture of liquid latex, flour, and unrolled cotton balls to lay out, build, and shape my prosthetics. This is actually a technique that I learned from LA so shout out to them again. You just want to lay out the initial shape with the cotton dipped in latex and then dip your finger in the latex mixture to soften and blend the texture and the edges as much as possible. Honestly, this was my first time trying this technique and it's not the most realistic looking, but I actually like how it gave the clown almost like a paper mache kind of look. And I built high arching brows that basically ended up looking like McDonald's M logo at some points, which I wouldn't have minded if I were actually going for a Ronald McDonald look, but alas, I was not. But anyways, I also made the clown look by keeping the edges tight to where it actually attached to the rest of my face, and then I just really focused on rounding out that nose, and then following that same technique to create my chin and my cheek pieces. You definitely want to make these pieces ahead of time because you want to let them dry for at least 12 hours. Then when they're dry, just dust a generous amount of flour or powder of some sort all over and then gently peel up the edges, adding powder underneath the prosthetic as you go so that the pieces don't stick to themselves because they will, and it's very annoying. Now it's time to shave your head. Kidding. That's what bald caps are for. This is my first time actually wearing a bald cap, and just FYI, it's really freaking funny before you attach the hair. I mean, just look at this picture. However, before you apply the cap, you want to make sure that your hairline is coated thoroughly with a barrier of some sort, like Vaseline. I actually use conditioner because that's what we used whenever I got my face cast done, but come to find out, it didn't work very well, so I highly recommend Vaseline. Then you want to try on the bald cap and see how it fits and then trim it accordingly. Here, I obviously started trimming it myself and then felt very unsafe doing so I highly recommend getting some help with this part. Thanks, Megan. But just trim out a gap for your ears, and if you're recreating this look verbatim, then don't worry too much about the back of the cap because it will be covered by the red hair we are going to attach later. Then, using liquid latex, lay it underneath and on top of the edges of the bald cap in order to secure and blend the edges. And now for the prosthetics. Just like how we attach the bald cap, you want to do the same for these pieces by positioning it on your face to figure out exactly where it lays, and then laying down a layer of liquid latex to press it over, and then going over the edges with the latex again. And obviously, I left my nose piece off for last because I very much enjoy breathing through my nose. It's quite convenient. Then for any parts of the prosthetic that has a really hard edge, you want to add some latex and cotton or tissue over the edges in order to help it transition into the rest of the face. And then apply that nose like you're not ashamed. Then paste yourself out like the pretty little snowflake that you are. Here I am using the LA Girl Pro Cover Foundation, which I highly recommend despite what the lady at the store told us that it wouldn't work. It worked like a dream. Then, once you are your ghostly self, it's time to make this come to life. Start by adding dimension by using a black eyeshadow to shade in any already existing crevices. I spent a lot of time actually shading around the brows to really make them stand out because my fear was that when all was said and done, I was gonna end up looking more like Jigsaw rather than a clown, so I really wanted the brows to be like a focal point. And then starting with the eyes, you want to paint black eyeshadow all over, slowly dragging it up to a pointed shape as you blend it towards the brow, and then pulling it down onto the cheeks as well. I did 3 little stripy stripes, but feel free to do whatever shape or pattern or whatever you like. Then I started by covering my nose in just a basic red grease paint, but I didn't feel like it was vivid enough, so I actually went in with a MAC lipstick in the shade, I'm going to butcher this, but it's Dubonnet Amplified. I don't know. Okay. I did that to give it more depth and vibrant, so it just kind of had more of like a gory feel. And then, in order to further accentuate the protruding cheekbones, you want to create a hard line with black eyeshadow right underneath that cheekbone and then blend it downwards to make your natural cheeks recede and appear more sunken in. Then, using a stippling brush, you just want to randomly stipple that all over the face to kind of dirty everything up, and including your bald head, because you want everything to look cohesive from the back of your head to your neck. Then, using that same MAC lipstick from earlier, we're going to do the ever so elegant and classic red lip by using the tip of your lipstick to extend the corners of your mouth, and then using a small brush to smudge it into little points. You'll eventually find yourself to be the most classy clown in town. Then, using the NARS liquid lipstick in the shade Painted Black, I put on a little dot on my lips and then smudged it out into the rest of the red to give it a little bit more depth. Then I decided that my brows just weren't popping enough, so I went in with a bright yellow eyeshadow from the Morphe 35C palette and filled them in like a real beauty queen. And yeah, this is where they started to look like McDonald's M logo, okay? But I'm still loving it. Now it's time to turn our pretty little princess selves into a gory princess. First, lay down a layer of liquid latex and press a long, skinny piece of tissue over it and then cover it with latex again. Rinse and repeat until you're happy with the thickness and create a parallel piece as well, leaving a small gap in between the two. And you can always use a hairdryer to expedite the process anytime you're working with latex. And once it's dry, try to peel it up from the inside, and if need be, carefully use a small pair of scissors to cut any attached parts to create your incision. Then use a red grease paint or a red lipstick to fill in the gash, and then add a little bit of black to give it depth to the gash. And then start bringing that red outside of the wound as well to create the appearance of irritation. And the best part, the blood. I'm using Blood Scab from Party City. It's very thick, and when it dries down, it kind of crystallizes, so it always looks a little bit wet and nasty, so highly recommend. Okay, so this was honestly probably the hardest part. So I bought some wire from the craft store, and we cut it up into small pieces and bent them, and then I laid down a thick dot of latex, held the wire onto it, and while holding the wire in place, I reached over, grabbed more latex to apply a thick dot over the wire so that when it dries, it looks like it's actually under the skin. Don't do this part without a hairdryer, otherwise you'll be miserable trying to wait for each little dot to dry in between. Trust me. And lastly, just adding a little bit of blood over the wire to make everything look cohesive, and the look is complete. Because I unfortunately didn't get any footage of myself applying the hair to the bald cap because we ended up doing it in a rush. But if you want to attach hair, it's really not hard at all. Just treat it like a prosthetic. Lay down some latex, take chunks of hair. I just bought a pack of loose fake hair from Queen's Beauty Supply, and lay it down flat on the latex and kind of try to stagger the hairs a little bit to make it look more natural, and then apply a thin layer of latex over where you attach the hair. And then definitely get someone to help you with this part because it is really hard to attach hair to the back of your head.